Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome back, friends. Welcome to another video lecture by Kame Biology. In this video lecture, we are going to talk about type 1 hypersensitivity. In the previous video lecture, if you guys remember, we talked about hypersensitivity. We talked about the introduction of the hypersensitivity, and we also talked about some definitions of cell-mediated immunity. We talked about humoral, just definition, humoral mediated immunity, autoantibody, means autoantibody, and we also talked about immunocompromised system as well. Now, in this video, what we are going to talk about, we are going to talk about type 1 hypersensitivity. So let me write type 1 hypersensitivity. Type 1 hypersensitivity, if we talked about the type 1 hypersensitivity, so it is, immediate hypersensitivity, means it is activated immediately. Why? Because let's suppose a person is, it is exposed to an allergen. If you guys remember, we talked about allergen as well. Allergen are those substances which can just trigger or which can just activate or aware the immunity. Okay, so when a person is exposed to such allergen, so then they will activate the immunity within, means they will activate the hypersensitivity reaction within few minutes. So that's why we call that immediate hypersensitivity as well. The second thing is that we also call that what? We also call that anaphylactic reaction as well. Why we call that anaphylactic reaction? We'll be talking later, because it can create a lot of symptoms due to which we call that anaphylactic reaction. We'll be talking later. Now, what actually happened in type 1 hypersensitivity? Type 1 hypersensitivity involved different cells, means lymphocytes. They are involved different lymphocytes like B cells, neutrophils, plasma cells, mast cells, okay, and they also involve we can say that antibodies, means like IgE antibodies. They also involve some chemicals like histamine, heparin, leukotrienes. These kinds of chemicals they also involve. So all these things are involved in type 1 hypersensitivity. But how? Let me explain. Now, first of all, what actually happened? Let's suppose a person is exposed to an allergen. Let's suppose what actually happened in type 1 hypersensitivity. Let's suppose these are what these dots are representing these are representing the allergy, or we can say pollen's dust. Dust contain a lot of things. It may contain pollen, it may contain animal tissue, it may contain dandruff, it may contain pathogen, useful substance, harmful substance as well. So let's suppose we take dust particles. So the first steps, what actually happen? Dust particles is internalized to the human body. It may be internalized through ingestion or inhalation. Let's suppose it is internalized to the human body, and let's suppose once they are internalized, so they will reach towards they will reach to tissue area. We can say lymphatic tissue as well. So let's suppose this is the lymphatic tissue. Or we can also say lymphatic vessel, let's suppose, or vessel. So what actually happen? Once each dust particles are internalized inside our tissue, then what actually happen? They will cause a mutation. Now here questions are also raised in our mind. Means this hypersensitivity, means this, let's suppose if we talked about the allergen, so allergen can cause allergic reaction. Can this allergen can cause the hypersensitivity reaction in some other individual as well? The answer is no. It cannot cause, it cannot cause the hypersensitivity reaction. Means such allergen cannot cause the hypersensitivity reaction in some other individual. Let's suppose we have 100 populations, 100% population. In 100% population, we have 20% population have hypersensitivity reactions. They have hypersensitivity. They can create the hypersensitivity reaction when it is exposed to allergen. But the 20%, but the rest of the, the rest of the peoples don't have such type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. If it is exposed to any kind of allergen or dust, they don't have such type of hypersensitivity. Among them, only 20% can, activate such type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. So let's suppose the dust are internalized and it will cause a mutation. In what kind of cell it will cause a mutation? If you know, mutation means it is a kind of changes which occur inside the chromosomes. So let's suppose we have what we have as cells. We usually call that what we usually call that helper T cell. So this is what this is the helper T cell, but helper T cell 2. Okay, we have what we have helper T cell. Inside the helper T cell, there are the genes and chromosomes are present. So these genes and chromosomes are get mutated. What they are get mutated. Once each genes are get mutated, then they will secrete what each cells will secrete interleukin 4 and interleukin 5. So let me write interleukin 4 and interleukin 5. Now, once each interleukins are secreted in the form of a single signal, now then what actually happens? They will activate what? They will activate the B cells. What they activate? They will activate the B cells. So let me draw here the B cells. So B cells will be activated. So all of you better know that B cells have also the nucleus and they have also what? They have the receptors as I am drawing. So they have receptors. Each receptors will, receive the dust particle as well. So dust particles will also present in each of the receptor as well. But it doesn't mean that the B cell will be activated. Now B cell will be activated when the interleukins are secreted from the helper T cells. Then they will activate B cells. Okay, so this is what? This is the B cells. Okay, once all B cells are activated, then all the pollens will attach here. So when the pollens will be attached, already. But once the pollens are attached, so what actually they will do? So once all the pollens are, sit here, then this B cells will be converted in what? These B cells will be converted into a plasma cells. And let me draw first of all the plasma cell, that how it will be look like. So we have what? We have the plasma cells. All of you better know plasma cells are what? Plasma cells are those cells which secrete the antibodies, or means immunoglobulins, we can also call that. So they are antibody factory, antibody industry, they are antibody machinery. So they contain what? They contain the antibody. So these are what? These are the antibody. So they will secrete antibodies. Now here the question is, right, what kind of antibody they will secrete? They will secrete IgE antibody. Okay, so they will secrete IgE antibody. So let's suppose these blue one are what? These blue one are the IgE antibody. Once the IgE antibodies are secreted from each plasma cells, which B cells will actually they will modify their self into a plasma cell. Then plasma cell will secrete the IgE. Once the IgE antibodies are secreted, then we have another cells, we usually call that mast cell. So let me draw the mast cell here. So we have another cell which is activated. We call that what? We call that mast cell. So mast cell having they have also a nucleus. So this is the nucleus of what? This is the nucleus of mast cell. And one thing more, mast cells contain granules, or they contain vesicles. So let me draw each of the vesicles. So they contain different kinds of the vesicles. So let me draw. Now these are what? These are the vesicle. Each vesicle contain chemicals. Each vesicles contain what? Each vesicles can consist chemicals. These dots are, let's suppose, representing that they contain chemicals. Chemicals like histamine, chemical like heparin, chemical like serotins, leukotriene B4, C4, D4, like these kinds of the chemicals they contain. What actually happen? Each antibody, when the antibody are secreted, means a lot of IgE are secreted, then a lot of the mast cells are activated. But mast cell is not activated at a time. Once these IgE are activated, so then each mast cell have what? Each mast cell have receptors on their surface, on their membrane surface. So let's suppose this is the membrane surface of what? This is the membrane surface of the mast cells. Now each mast cells have what? Each mast cells have receptor. Now these are representing the receptors, and we usually call that what? Fc epsilon. Fc epsilon receptor, or we also call that what? Or we call that IgE receptors. Okay, we also call that what? IgE receptors. Now why we call the Fc epsilon receptor? We call that Fc epsilon receptor because the IgE, the means the immunoglobulin, or we can say this antibody, they will connect it, means to that receptors, but their Fc portion will be connected. If you know about that IgE has two structure. This one is the Fb portion and this is the Fc portion. Okay, so their Fc portion will connect to this, means to this receptor. So that's why we call this receptor Fc epsilon receptors, and we call that IgE receptor because here the IgE antibodies are connected. Now let's suppose, but one thing more, two IgE antibodies will be connected. Okay, this is very important. Here two IgE will be connected. So let me draw each of the IgE. So now this is the one IgE and this is another IgE. So once two IgE antibodies are connected here, then what do you think? This mast cell will be activated? The answer is no, still it is not active. Why? Because still it is not activated. The activation may be possible when the allergen is connected here. Although the allergen is internalized, but these allergen can activate these kind of systems. Sometimes this allergen will also sit to here. So let's suppose this is the allergen. Once the allergen are sit here, now one thing more, this antibodies will have to cross links. Once the cross linkage are occur, so then this mast cell, what? This is mast cell. Okay, then this mast cell will be activated. Let's suppose the allergen are sit with this antibody, or they can cross linked. As you are watching, this allergen can cross linked what? Antibodies. So there are a lot of epsilon receptors. I draw just only one receptor. They have a lot of Fc epsilon receptors, due to which a lot of antibodies are seated. Not only one mast cells there are a lot of mast cells are present, but I actually draw one mast cell and I just draw one plasma cells. This is the plasma cells. So one thing that I must tell you, a lot of plasma cell, B cells and a lot of mast cells are activated in type 1 hypersensitivity. Once this allergen are sit and they will cross-link the antibody. As you are watching, the antibody are no cross-link. Now once the antibody are cross-linked, then what actually happen inside the mast cell? Inside the mast cell, cyclic guanine monophosphates will be activated, will be raised. Their concentration will be raised. So next we have cyclic guanine monophosphate is activated. Once it is activated or raised, or their concentration is raised, so then they will produce a secondary message, or it act as a secondary messenger. Due to this secondary messenger, what actually happen? They will activate the nucleus of the mast cell. Once the mast cell nucleus are activated, then what actually they do? They will messages, or they will rearrange the cytoskeleton or the microtubules. If you don't know about the cytoskeleton and microtubules, I already explained it. You can watch it on into my channel. Now once microtubules and cytoskeleton are rearranged, so then they will send each of the vesicles. So each of the vesicles are sent and they will reach to the membrane area. So each of the vesicles are reached to the membrane area. And what actually happen? Each of the vesicle are fused. So let's suppose each of the vesicle are fused as you are watching. So these are what? These are the chemicals. Now what kind of chemicals are secreted? So let me let me write here, we have a histamine, heparin, serotonin, we have leukotriene, C4, B4, D4, prostaglandin enzymes, prostaglandin enzymes, and we have also some prostaglandin enzyme. We have also some ECA means ECA and ECA factor. So just like that chemicals are secret, although there are some other chemical as well, but these are the common chemicals. Now these chemicals are secreted. Histamine and heparin are what? They are the protein mediators, and this leukotriene, C4, B4 and D4, these are what? These are the lipid mediators. Okay, once each chemicals are secreted, then each of the chemical can cause different kinds of symptoms, like rashes, red itchy eyes. So let me write among them these these two means this histamine and heparin. This histamine and heparin, what they will cause? They will cause vasodilation and smooth muscle contraction. So let me write, they will cause vasodilation. Okay, they will cause vasodilation and what? And smooth muscle contraction. So let me explain each of the things. Vasodilation means when the vessels are permeable, means the increased permeability inside the vessels happen, due to which the cell are shrinked. So this kind of phenomena occur. Due to this way, low blood pressure are occur and circulatory disturbance or circulatory shocks will happen due to this vasodilation. Next we have smooth muscle contraction will also happen. In smooth muscle contraction, the smooth muscles like trachea is the smooth muscle, it will contract. Now once the trachea is contracting, what it will do? It will cause the airway constriction. Due to this way, asthma occur. So in case of asthma, there is a difficulty in breathing. So these kinds of things are activated, or these kind of symptoms are activated. Not only these kind of symptoms, we have some other symptoms. Let me explain some other symptoms as well. We have, if you remember, we have runny nose, hay fever. We have rashes, hives, coughing, sneezing. Okay, a lot of symptoms are created, but these are so common symptoms that I write here. So some all these are called what? All these are called anaphylactic reactions. So that's why we also call this type 1 hypersensitivity anaphylactic reaction as well, because all these are called what? All these are called anaphylactic reaction. Some of them are what? Some of them are systemic anaphylactic reaction, and some of them are localized. So as you are watching, these vasodilation and smooth muscle contraction are the localized. What they are? These are the localized anaphylactic reaction. But these rashes, coughing, hives, sneezing, hair fevers, runny nose, these are what? These are the systemic anaphylactic reaction. So these are all anaphylactic reactions. So that's why we also call that what? We also call that anaphylactic reaction as well. Okay. So all these process will be happen inside our body when and all these processes are called what we call, all this process we call that type 1 hypersensitivity. Normally what actually happen, normally this process will not activate it, normally this process will not happen inside the individual. But when the individual have a mutation, means when they get a mutation, chromosomal changes occur, then each cells will hepatitis cell 2 will activate the whole system. But what actually happen, normally what actually happen inside our body, normally these plasma cells, when each dust particles, when they contain the pathogen, so then each plasma cells will secrete IgE, IgG antibody, two antibody they will secrete. And not all the cells will get hyper, only few cells will activate it, and only few cells will get activated, and they will damages the dust particle or any kind of the things that will harms to our tissue. So and pathologically what happens, one thing more that I forget to mention, these leukotrienes C4, B4 and D4 will what they will do, they will they will activate it some other cells. Let me draw. They will activate it. We have neutrophils and basophils. So let's suppose these are what? These are the neutrophils, and these are what? These are the basophils. So neutrophils and basophils, it is also called chemotactic factor. This leukotriene C4, B4 and D4 act as a chemotactic factor, means neutrophils and basophils will also activate it during this process, and then each neutrophil and basophil will cause damages to our tissues. Once our tissues are damaged, so such tissue may be the smooth muscle, such tissue may be the vessels tissue, due to which vasodilation and smooth muscle contraction are occurred. Not only that, these symptoms are also activated. Okay, but normally it is not activated. Normally we have IgE and IgG antibodies are activated, and they will just kill the antigen. We have pathogens that can harms the tissue, so they will just kill these kinds of the pathogen. And one thing more, not all of the histamine and these kinds of chemicals are not activated. Just those chemicals are secreted which can kill the pathogens. Okay, so I hope you understand about the type 1 hypersensitivity. So that's all about the hypersensitivity. If there is something missing, so then write it into a comment. Inshallah, I will give you answer. If you like this video, so make sure to hit the like button, share this video, and also subscribe the channel. And stay tuned, because in the next video lecture, we are going to talk about type 2 hypersensitivity in a detail. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned. Thank you so much.